Now. Keir Starmer goes off to Brussels today to meet the bigwigs, saying he wants to put the Brexit years behind us. What on earth does that mean? Here he was at the press conference afterwards.
Now, of course, there will be issues which are difficult to resolve, and on areas on which we will stand firm. There will be no return to freedom of movement, no return to the customs union, no return to the single market. But we will find constructive ways to work together and deliver for the British people.
So the one real difference that I can see between the last government and this government is on matters of the European Defence Union, where clearly Labour want to be more involved. But what does it all mean, Lloyd? I mean, we're not going to rejoin any of these things. So how's the relationship going to change?
It is interesting that it was the European defence aspects which were the controversial parts of the Lisbon Treaty and the European Constitution that meant it all fell apart. And it was Britain that was saying we want no European defence coordination. That's what NATO is for. It's very interesting now that it seems to all be forgotten, and suddenly that's the bit that we're happy to go in on.
I haven't forgotten it, I can assure you.
But, that's the narrative. We're happy to go in on that because Ukraine seems to have changed the... Well, is the implication, therefore, that NATO is not working, or that people are worried about what's going to happen in America? That means that they want to create an alternative structure. I'm not sure alternative structures are very good, and particularly an alternative structure that will be controlled by the European Union. We will be a kind of semi-voting member of having a say, but
Very
not a
sensible.
say. Either in or out. I mean, you've got to decide. But on freedom of movement stuff, I think that at the moment he's got his rhetoric certainly muddled up with some of the youth mobility programmes, because you can have youth mobility without freedom of movement. We have youth mobility with Australia, we have youth mobility with Japan. The EU has a youth mobility programme with Albania, but still requires visas into the Schengen area. So I think that there will be some programmes like that they will find workarounds, that they say we're going to re-engage in those bits. Youth mobility, to me, is a clear one, because it's the nice bit that people enjoyed. But does
that make it the thin end of the wedge? Does it mean that you do that and then you move on to more and more?
Well, you move on to more and more as long as you're not breaking those three lines. And you can have freedom of movement, so you don't have to have freedom of movement, but you can have some kind of youth mobility visa scheme which allows young people to come, like Australians do, for 2 years, but they have to be out after the 2 years. So you can do things like that do suddenly put your relationship closer together. But as soon as you start to talk about trade, let's be honest, as soon as you start to talk about trade, you have to make a choice. Do you want to diverge or do you want to converge? And if you're on the converging stream, that is fine, but you are then on the stream of being a rule taker, not a rule maker.
No, I know. And actually, one of my biggest criticisms of the Conservatives since Brexit was finally delivered, is we haven't really diverged at all, have we?
No, we haven't, but we have got the ability to do it. Now, let's look at what Keir Starmer actually said himself in his manifesto about what should happen with the European Union. He said every single part of the Brexit deal needs renegotiation, whether that's free movement, whether that's joining the European army, whatever it is. His own manifesto says he is going to renegotiate every single part of the Brexit deal. And do not forget that deal, conveniently enough for him, comes up for review in 2026. And what this is, I'm sorry, Russell, but, what this is softening the British public up with nice things. Of course, all we'll want our kids to be able to go and study in Spain and Portugal and wherever else it may be. In Germany. It is for softening the British public up. He and his civil service chums know they've got a year to work on us for, ultimately, in my view, a Brexit betrayal in 2026. That's what they said they wanted to do in their manifesto, is change every part of the Brexit
Let's
deal.
assume that Jake's right. But that would give him a huge problem with those 4 million Labour voters that are quite strong Brexiteers.
Yes, it would give a problem unless you can show that you are cashing in some of the Brexit dividend. So, for example, you could changed some of the finance regulations in the city. The EU regulations have stopped the ability for research to be bundled together with investment, which is a complete nightmare for investment, because it means you've got to separately decide to pay for the research to know what bit of the investment you want to invest in and where the trends are. And it means you're getting worse kinds of investments. It would give Britain a competitive advantage if you were to allow rebundling of that. It would go against the EU rules, but you could quite easily make a case that on goods and services we want some conversion, but we're going to get the diversion.
Do you think he'd do that?
On some of those other things.
Do you really
if
think
he
he'd
did
do
that,
that?
I think he could legitimately say, actually, I haven't cashed in on the bits that we needed to cash in on, but the bits that we didn't really need, because we all want our electronic goods to be of a safety standard, I'm happy to partake.
Lloyd,
if he does it, that would be the strategy.
If he was to
I would
do
pursue.
that, politically, that would be very, very clever, and you might buy off. But I mean, obviously, you know, he's the man that wanted a second referendum. He didn't respect the result of the first one. The instincts of those at the top of the Labour Party are Remainer straight rejoiner. So I'm going to watch it very, very carefully.
It's the
indeed.
instincts of people at the top of government.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, there's one party that really won the last general election. It wins every single time. It's called the civil service. And until you actually change that, you will have this Remain establishment
right.
who have never forgiven the British people for voting for Brexit.
Sticking with Starmer, he's today. So Lord Ali, we hear, is now going to be investigated by the Standards Board of the House of Lords for not making proper declarations. And the Prime Minister has agreed to repay £6,000 worth of gifts that he's received since he was Prime Minister. He's in a bit of trouble over this, isn't he? Because, you know, he's really been giving us for the last couple of years the art holier than thou, I'm different, I'm going to change politics. It's not a good look, is it?
Well, I think it is not a good look if you dig your heels in. And what we saw with the last government, if you remember when they were trying to then change the rules last minute when commissions were saying that their MPs had lobbied, etc., was that it looked like people were trying to cover it up after the effect. I think if he repays it, draws a line under it, the country will probably quickly forget. The worst thing is to allow it to rumble on. So that's why he's decided to pay the money back and to make sure the rules are changed so there's greater transparency going forward. Now, as I've said on this programme before, I actually think some of it is slightly rated. The reason we have this declaration system is to try and stop people buying influence. I'm not sure Lord Ali, who's a Labour peer already at the centre of the project, already in the inner circle, was buying influence by it. I think that he was just helping his friends out. The problem is that it is impossible to draw a line between someone who's buying influence and helping your friends.
He's got an awful lot of friends, hasn't he?
He has. I mean, he's paid far more, bigger amounts of money to other people. I mean, in the millions to some other people. I think that as long as there is a clear trail, I don't think there is a problem necessarily with these things. And we've seen that.
I don't begrudge Keir Starmer getting a box at Arsenal. Because for him to sit in the stands will be absolutely ridiculous. But all this stuff did the Tory party huge damage over the years. This has hurt Starmer, hasn't it?
I think it has. And the thing is that I saw Pat McFadden was out this weekend saying these were political donations. They absolutely were not. A political donation is made to a political party, and once the political party receives it, they can pretty much spend it on whatever they want, and it isn't declarable. Lord Ali, for whatever reason, decided to make these donations directly to these individuals, the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, the Deputy Prime Minister. Now, I wouldn't like to get into speculating as to why he would prefer to have a direct relationship giving money to people rather than to a political party, and access to number 10.
Access to number 10 is a very, very different thing.
And why this is so bad.
Some of these donations were, I have a flat that's sitting empty, come and use it. We all have had friends.
I get that.
We all have had friends.
I don't have any friends who have an £18 million flat.
Not an £18 million.
If you're watching...
I've got friends who have got a spare bedroom. You know, when I got rid of, you know, kind of, I had friends, you know, a friend in Sheffield who has a small little flat said, if you need to get away from it all because it's all a bit stressful, Lloyd, come up to Sheffield and you can crash on my spare room. I didn't take her up on that, but I think
you didn't do Zoom calls from it, sort of letting people believe it was actually your house.
So I think that, again, we need to cut some of this.
The fact that he's got unlimited access to number 10 is most unusual.
Well, had.
Well, he briefly had a pass to number 10.
Until it was
Didn't have one at the
exposed.
moment. Didn't have one at the moment.
It's not a good look.
Look, if he's a member of the party already, I think the donations of things like glasses and clothes and tickets to Taylor Swift, which are not from Lord Ali, I understand, these are from other people, that I think is not the good look. I mean, Keir's glasses look identical, in my eyes, to my glasses, and I got mine from Specsavers.
There you are.
So I do wonder...
On that advertisement, which we're not supposed to do on this show, but never mind. In a moment, we will discuss a 17-year, can you believe it?